when you go and pitch to people, I'm going to make a magical realist documentary about my grandmother, they say, yeah, whatever, right? Like, people are not going to get behind this and support it until you're really far along, because that's not how these things go, right? So having someone who I was that close with, where we could understand each other and knew that we had a similar vision of what we wanted to do. We wanted to make a certain type of film that we knew did not exist, and we knew that no one else thought existed or should exist. So to have that person with you along the way, and to believe in the idea, to believe in this crazy kind of journey that we're on, was something that was really specific to having a sibling. Okay. In terms of separating out the different bits, I really can't tell you, because it was such a deep collaboration that I couldn't say this is my scene, this is her scene. We really we fought it out, until there were moments where we know we have to cover the house with clothes. That's just going to be the end. We know it's going to happen. We had certain things that I don't even know who came up with them, but we both just agreed on them. And other things were here's the idea, and then the other person goes, that's the stupidest idea I ever heard. And I said, no, it's the best idea. We'd fight it out until eventually we come up with a third idea, which was not what either one of us had come up with. And that would be the scene. It was really after our grandmother died, and after this project in Venezuela sort of petered out, they were we really want to make a certain type of film. We had been interested also not just in Wes Anderson, but in the films of Agnes Varda and Alan Berliner and other kind of trailblazing documentary filmmakers, because we wanted to find a way to make real stories as beautiful as a fake story.
That's wonderful. So now, why was it that you decided to do this documentary, and how? I know you must have been in amazing pain. How was it that you decided to do this? Because in every scene, you are so strong. That must have taken a lot.
First of all, I didn't decide anything. Second of all, it's an assignment. Third of all, when Dave came to speak to my family, that was about 5 days after Sandy was dead. I was in a Twilight Zone type of, Dave, I didn't even see you. I'm not even gonna lie. But his persona, the presentation about what he was going to try to do to make sure that Sandy's legacy maintained. Well, I already knew, regardless of the state of mind I was in, I knew I was going to get out here and hit the ground running for her. And so to then talk to Dave, who didn't look like me, didn't have any ulterior motive in my brain, and who came with a presentation of, I want to do this right. I want to do right by your family.
The reason it's so important to me is because as I went through all of this, the thing that I was most concerned about is that there were so many people that blamed this family for sort of creating a lot of this. But this film really, it underscores the reality that there were a lot of things that don't make sense. It just don't make sense. And that they were being bombarded with them. And so they didn't know what to believe.
One of the facts to me that is sort of rampant throughout the entire scenario from the arrest on is that Sandra was part of a callous system that was failing her all the way along the line, every day, from this bogus arrest, the felony charge, the brutality, the slap that didn't even really make the news. I had to study that to get that. I think we're talking about racism in law enforcement, which has an insidious effect in the cracks, of every event all the way along the line, no matter what happened at the end.
And David, what was the most difficult part of it?
Of the whole?
Yeah.
It's a really good question. I think to me the most difficult part, honestly, was staying silent and observing some of the very painful, emotional events that we were present at. When Dr. Carter reveals the results of her autopsy in this private meeting in the law firm, and it's a devastating meeting. You feel deeply uncomfortable being there watching it, but you know that you're documenting something that needs to be documented, that is important. But you go home that night and you don't sleep that easy.
Everybody has a purpose. No, it was not her time to die, but it was her time to go. Okay? Because if she had not gone, we would not know about those 7 young ladies that also died in July in the jail. Some of them, they say, hung themselves. And her legacy now, for me, is for any and everybody who has not yet connected themselves to someone that doesn't look like them. I'm not talking about just going to lunch everywhere. Really create a relationship with that individual. Really create a relationship and find out what your role is with that person. Sandy was all about people connecting. All colors, all creeds across the country. That, her legacy is bringing love and unity to folks' lives. That is what I would like.
I had, in my amateurish way since the 90s, attempted to contact various companies. I tried calling American Standard headquarters by like 1998 or something, and you just get the same brick wall pretty much all the time. Oh no, no one around here now goes back to that era, and everything from those years was thrown out.
Ford barely had anything. We got that stuff from a producer of one of those shows. The Coke archives barely had anything. They sent us some stuff, but it was like one of those commercial songs, like I'd like to
Buy the World of Coke, yeah.
They sent me some of that film, but they didn't have any musicals. That was all either producers of the stuff or people who were in the shows where we got that stuff.
Yeah, it was very hard to explain even to company archivists often. No, we're not looking for commercials. We know what those are. We're looking for... Wait, you're telling me we had musicals about our product for this? Are you insane? How could that be real? No, well, you did them. Yeah, I think a lot of these companies, they're bewildered at first in the same way that composers and performers were often suspicious of me when I approached them. But after just a little bit of immersion in what we're talking about and hearing about the obvious enthusiasm and respect that we had, they say, wow, this is part of our history that we had forgotten about. How can we get on board with celebrating this? Because it's fun for us. It makes our whole way of life seem a little better that we actually cared about our employees enough as a family to sort of get them psyched up and bring them all together like this.
We could bring back some of those songs. That's what I want to do. You know, bring back the Seagram show that there's no recording in it or whatever it is.
The RCA shows that no one has ever heard since 1964. And I was saying to Dave, yeah, we could do it because here's all the music manuscripts. It's like bringing the dinosaurs back to life from the DNA in the Jurassic Park movie, and that always turns out fine. So why shouldn't we?
How did you hear about Alan in the first place? How did this come about? You're not Islanders, I gather. Somehow you heard about a farmer and an artist.
Well, we come here we spend a few months out of the year here, and the off-season. David's parents are here year-round, but really, Alan came to us by way of Chris and Sheila Morris. And Chris, we had done a film 2 years ago called Visions of Home that premiered at the Catawalk, and Chris came up to us and said, you guys, he liked the movie, and he said, you should talk to Alan Whiting. You really need to talk to him. He's an incredible artist. He's an incredible story. He is the island.
My parents probably did me a big favor by never taking me to a museum. So I wasn't begrudgingly dragged around. So I was always fascinated with art, but I was playing ball and goofing off through high school. And then I went to a little prep school that didn't even have art. But I just kept the interest was going. And then when I was about 23, I went to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. I don't know what got me there, but I walked out a different person than I walked in. I knew what I was going to do. Of course, I was with my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife, who was she was better, well-rounded than I was, and I think she about had a heart attack when I said, I'm going to be a painter. So that's why I work hard to this day to back it up. But it hit me that day in the museum that that's what I really wanted to do. So I just started. Well, this is the fourth screening I've seen, and it didn't really bother me at all until about an hour ago. I got kind of sick to my stomach. I'm kind of sick of Alan Whiting myself. It's really flattering that you made this movie, and you did a wonderful job.
Originally, it was a much smaller film. It was a film more about Gilda's clothing, Gilda, and it was sort of a hobby for me. But about halfway through the project, I asked Gilda's brother if he had anything in store, any archives. I knew he did. I knew he had some boxes in storage. And
Everyone does.
Yeah, and it took a while to get him to get the boxes out, and then Gilda's friend Judy and I went there, and in those boxes were 32 hours of audio tapes that Gilda had recorded in order to write her book, It's Always Something. On the bad side, all the tapes were damaged in some sort of way. Some extremely damaged, some of them that we were able to restore for the film. But once I heard Gilda talking, I just wanted her to tell her own story. So we collected other audio interviews and whatever we can to sort of put that together. I really wanted to tell her Gilda's story from the beginning to the end, and I wanted to be in her words. So I tried to, my editor and I really had her voice as the backbone of the film. And then the information that we had through the journals were another voice, and then her friends and family were another voice, and then the modern day comedians were like still another voice. So it kind of happened like a montage over a period of time.
How long did it take you to make the
It
film?
took 4.5 years, and mostly because of the first 2 years. I mean, it's hard to believe it now, is that when I was going for funding for films, people would say, well, no one knows who Gilda Radner is anymore.
We've done a lot of projects together, so we were together already as a team. You know, when this project came through the door, it was pretty, it came together actually quite easily because Susan had already been speaking to Jane when she was at still running American Masters before she defected, so to speak, to HBO. And so when Susan came asking and said, you know, we want to do this project, Jane was easy to say yes because she had, you know, so much trust in Susan based upon her track record.
There were many parts of Jane's story, I don't want to go into it at all, but many parts of Jane's story that I connected with. And one of the reasons that she wrote her book, and one of the reasons I wanted to make this film, is that there is so much in her story that so many people can connect with, not just women. It's been interesting. Men have connected this as well. Parental difficulties with your children, body image issues, unfaithful husbands. I mean, we could go on and on. There are things in her story and her insecurity that I think connects with almost everybody in some way. Maybe not all of them, of course, but she wrote the book because she felt if I, Jane Fonda, can have these things happen to me, I can have these issues and these problems that I had to find a way to overcome, I think my story can be helpful. What the film becomes is a question, of course, of the story, and the story is the story, but it's also about the filmmaker. And you could give the same material, same interviews, same archive material, everything, to 10 different filmmakers. You're going to be 10 different films. So I knew the film I wanted to make. I related to what I think will always be the center of Jane, which is Little Girl Blue. Which is why that last image in the opening montage is her with a little flower, and the last image is her with a little flower, learning to live with her shadows. And I have to tell you, when we found that those whole movies of her going in and out of the shadows, I thought, oh my God, there is a divinity up there. Because I knew I wanted to end with that, and I really wasn't clear about the image. And then when we found that, it was so amazing.
It was amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, audience.